Hi fellow chatterers. It feels like it's been a while. This is the first video I filmed since I came back from my holiday, which I was very fortunate enough to be able to take. I was able to have some videos kind of running through, so I did a lot of work before I went so they would be able to drop out. But I still haven't done my April wrap up for the second half of April. And we're in June. We're in June and I've still got that to do. So it feels weird, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably not going to talk about these books as well as I would like because I cannot remember them in the same detail that I would like to. But I don't want to ignore them completely and just wipe it under the carpet. I think if you do that, that's completely fine. But I also wanted to finish off the 3 readathons that I was doing in June and April, rewind, in April, and wrap them up. And we've started this video in full-on chaos mode. I've just launched straight into a life update and explanations before even properly doing my introduction. So, you know, sure, let's have a drink of tea and do that. I'm not refilming. It's a terrible kind of protocol for me because I start overthinking everything. It's fine. You know what you get when you come here. If you've not been here before, this is a nice welcome introduction to you, isn't it? So, I'm Chatty. Welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, where I'm going to be chatting away madly about the very long awaited What Have I Been Reading in April? Woo! If I can remember. So if you are new to my channel, it is Books, Tea and Chaos. That's how I like to describe it because there is always chaos. I can't edit unless I do a short because my laptop is so old and ancient. So I do one shot. So here's my teacup gimmick. Clink, clink, clink. And there is no editing. I just have the power of pause, and that is it. And that is it. So there are levels of utter unprofessionalism. The camera falls over. It's a fun time. Okay, where were we? My April reads. So yeah, I apologise already for not doing these books justice, but I didn't want to not talk about them because I had such an amazing reading month in April and I want to share my thoughts on these books. Now, the fortunate thing is 3 of them I'm very lightly going to touch on because I have used them in my sort of ORILIUM segmented vlog. So I will link in those particular episodes when I'm talking about them. That is one of the readathons that I did in April. It's gonna have months all over the place. I can already feel it. And we've got a high level of waffle before we've even started. So you're welcome. Extra waffle for you all. Yeah, so we'll see. There could be a lot of umming. All of the books that I talk about are linked in the description box. Yes, that is what it's called, in the description box, which will be down below. So if you want a synopsis, if you want other people's thoughts and opinions, if you want trigger warnings on any of the books because you think you may possibly be interested in reading them, then please do click the links for Storygraph where you can get all of those wonderful details. So 3 of my books you will get a much better description of, so that's helpful. So there's only 4, yes, maths, 7 and 3, 3 and 4 make 7. And also I have some picture books as well because one of the readathons was Picture This. So let's start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start. So I took part in April in the Picture This readathon. So I have 3 of those books to talk about and then I'll kind of wrap that up as a whole at the end. I took part in Trans Girl April. Again, I will talk about I have 2 books in here to talk about that I read for that, and then I will talk about all of my Trans Girl April reads and wrap that one up. And I took part in Magical Readathon and I will again wrap that up. So all of those fabulous readathons will be in the description box. So please go and check them out. Their creators are all amazing people, very different vibes on their channels, equally wonderful. And I will go into them a little bit more when I'm talking about the wrap up of those readathons. So if you are interested in particular readathons or just the wrap up of it, everything in here is timestamped. So to make it easier, because there's a lot of waffle to get through, you can skip to whatever bit interests you. You don't have to watch it as a whole. So, you know, there you go. Pick and choose, pick and mix what you want from this. Okay, so we're actually going to talk about the books now. I think I've said everything that I needed to. I think we all know what's going on in some form. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Sad Ghost Club 3, which is a graphic novel, and it is by Liza Meddings. And this one is called, the tagline is Find Your Kindred Spirits, I think. Yes, it's the tagline, not the book. It is just called The Sad Ghost Club 3. So I read Sad Ghost Club 1, I read Sad Ghost Club 2, Sad Ghost Club 2 because I missed it off, I think it was January wrap up. There is a link, which I'll put here, to Sad Ghost Club 2 where I talk more about that if you are interested. Sad Ghost Club 2 was my favourite just because of the particular bit of mental health that they touched on was something that I really appreciated seeing, and I kind of enjoyed the relationships between all of the ghosts. I have found some other sort of picture related mental health books that I hopefully can renew this one and then can do a video about that in the future, because I just think, particularly with mental health, I think the visual image that accompanies it is just really helpful for kind of explaining how it feels, because it's not logical. Like anxiety, depression, or any other form of mental health, it doesn't come across as logical. It can't, because it isn't logical. It is to do with emotions, it is to do with how you're feeling, and it just affects how you are in the world. And I just find it just so helpful to have that visual image. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I just think that is awesome. So again, you still get the wonderful vibe. If you enjoyed Ghost Club 1 and 2, you're gonna absolutely love this one as well. It continues sort of with the story, and it kind of explores different aspects of mental health, particularly in terms of like depression and anxiety is kind of its sort of general focus. So there's 3 sort of main characters now, and they've attracted sort of more kindred spirits, so there's more ghosties. This one kind of focuses more on when you kind of take too much on and you feel you're going to let someone down and you feel like you can't ask for help. So this is really well explored in here. It's done in such a beautiful way. There's real moments of trying to work with your mental health and trying to move forward, and then sometimes it can feel like you move 1 step forward and 3 steps back, and it can feel really disheartening and you can feel like giving up. And I think this book does such a wonderful job of that kind of keeping going, like keep working through it. Like small steps are progression and you will get to where you want to be. And I just think it's so comforting to see how you're feeling reflected in this, and kind of see your experiences reflected, and to be understood, and to find I feel it's a book where you could really find solace in it. The graphics again are just adorable. It's just so warm. Like, just look at all the little ghosts, look at all their little faces. So for those of you who can't, there is they've all got like these big, so they're like people wearing a sheet over their head, and they have these sort of like big oval shaped dark eyes and then little tiny mouth expressions, and then you can see their sort of like legs in different like shoes and feet underneath, and arms kind of poking out the sheets. They're like ponchos, and some arms have got sleeves, some arms are bare, and there you do also see sort of like in the background you sort of see other human characters. So there is one when they're in like a public space. Let me find it. So it's only the people who have who are the sad ghosts, who have the sheets over their head, who are represented like that. So it's like everyone else looks like everyone else looks like a human, and then the ghosts look like humans dressed in a sheet, like you would at a kid's fancy dress party. I think it's just a really cute way of like identifying, and it's acted as like totally normal in here. Like, it's just this visual representation of what it's like to be living with depression and anxiety, and I just think it works so well. Obviously you get a lot of like phones kind of coming in with text messages on, so some of the script is in that. It's very light on kind of like the words. There's lots of kind of pictures. It's like little small speech bubbles describing it, and then very much kind of like cartoon form. Like, a lot is said in this picture of where nothing is being said, so there's two ghosts together with nothing sort of being said for that moment, so it really kind of highlights those pauses in the conversation. And it's just such a wonderful friendship is explored in here as well. And something that I kind of hadn't thought about before until I was talking about this with my mum. Like, she's recently acquired the first book in this series, and is sharing it with lots of friends and family, which is wonderful. And so we were talking about it, and I just suddenly clicked. I was like, oh, I've just realised the ghosts aren't gendered. There's no gender in the ghosts at all, and I just think that just makes it really accessible. It's just not, it doesn't, and it didn't occur to me straight away that that was ever a thing. So yeah, I just thought, I'm just now thinking, like, are they gendered? Do they use pronouns at all? I don't know if they do. I think they just keep referring to characters by their names. No, I know they're actually using they. So yeah, it's just something I hadn't thought of before. I just like accepted these characters of ghosts, and they just didn't need a gender or an identity of non-binary, or it just wasn't a thing. It's just not part of this book. Like, it doesn't need to be a conversation, it doesn't need to be a thought. So I think because my brain is very like trans focused at the moment, I was just like, that's really interesting. Anyway, the point about this book is it's warm, it's what's the word? It's warm, it's comforting, and it just, if you don't have mental health or have never experienced it, I think it's a really good way of learning about it and kind of what it's like. It's such an easy read, it's really accessible, and it is it's aimed at YA. It's like a YA graphic novel, but you know, I'm an adult, I enjoy it. I know other adults that have really enjoyed this as well, and I think you could read this with middle grade children as well, if you know, if you have a young person in your life that you feel would really benefit from this, and knowing what their kind of like reading level is, if this would be helpful. Like, I definitely recommend like having a look at the Sad Ghost Club, because I think it's a really wonderful series. And that's what I mean about the chaos. There was absolutely no reason for the phone to like dive face first on the floor there. None at all. I don't know why it did it. Come on, phone, work with me here. Okay, so the next one I have to talk about is a placeholder. So this is a book where I feel I've used this book because it kind of represents the size. It's quite hefty. I think it was about 4 or 5, like nearly 500 pages. And it's Iron Widow by J. Zhao. So this is a YA sci-fi, and it is set in a fictional place, but it is inspired by some historical characters within China, and some periods within China. And there was a wonderful like explanation at the beginning of the book where J. Zhao was like, look, this is what it is. It's an inspiration by these. It's an homage to certain like historical things, but it is a fictional world. It's not a retelling of history or anything like that. So they are very clear about what the book is for. And it has massive feminist themes, but also within that it has very much the theme of aggression versus understanding. And I think some people have loved it for its kind of hard line that it takes. Other people have found that really alienating. It is definitely one where please check the trigger warnings before you go into it. There is a lot in there. I can't even begin to kind of list what's in there, but that is why I do Storygraph links, because in Storygraph, when you review things, they allow you to click moderate, mild, and high, and a whole list of different potential triggers. So if you are someone who you have a specific trigger, check in there, read reviews in there. It will give like a percentage, like, so ones where most of the people will be like, there is, you know, sexism and misogyny in there, there is physical abuse in there, like that will be quite clearly linked. But when there are other layers kind of in there, you can kind of see if you can judge whether or not it might be for you. Sorry, need a drink of tea. I'm talking so much. And we've barely got into the video in the books. Okay. So I'll come back to those themes in a minute, because I think that one of like aggression and what was the other word I used? Empathy? Peacemaking. I don't know. I can't even remember the words I'm using now. But that theme I really kind of linked onto quite a lot sort of throughout this story. It was so gripping in the world that we are presented with, the characters that we are shown, and the plot of what's going on. So I went in knowing as little as possible, because that's how I like to do it. And it really knew nothing. So when certain things happened, I was a little bit gobsmacked. I was like, oh, where is this going? This is fascinating. That was kind of resolved a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be, and the story goes in a completely different direction to what I was expecting, but it still all was heading to a certain point. There are some, there's some like different, I can't remember if it's broken up into parts or not, but there are definitely different like pieces of the narrative that all kind of work towards the whole. It's a really wonderful sci-fi dystopia story. I had such a brilliant time with it. It was, I loved her narrative voice. It was very easy to read and kind of get into. The characters and the combination of the characters I really enjoyed as well. There is some romance in here. There is friendship in here. There is family struggles in here. There is changing your opinion on people's characters in here. And I always like that in a book. I like it when there is growth. So I think when you feel a certain way about a character's decision or their way of treating other people, these are then dealt with later on, and that always makes me happy. So if that's something you enjoy as well, then you'll probably have a good time with this. And I just loved kind of the fallout of how it all kind of went. And there are just like, the second book is due out soon, The Heavenly Tyrant, and I'm so excited. I keep checking my library to see if they're getting it in, and because I'm on a book buying ban, and I don't see it. I think I'm gonna have to like request it, like that and another one. I was like, please, I need to read these. I'm really keen to see where it goes, like where it takes us, and what Zero and Jay's Hour is going to explore with this. I'm very excited to find out what's going to be happening next. It was fantastic. I'll talk a little bit about going back to that theme that I was mentioning, and then I'll go into like some just very mild spoilers. So will I go into mild spoilers, or will I talk about, I don't know, we'll see how I feel. But going back to the theme, there was just, it was, I've come across this kind of like when you're like protesting against a regime and standing up to a regime or way of people being treated, there's kind of always two different tracks that people take. There is the more aggressive, action, angry track, and there is the informative, more passive and understanding track. The aggressive one gets things done a lot quicker. The peaceful one allows some people that may have been alienated by the aggressive tactics into your point of view, but obviously takes longer. So I do think there are pros and cons of both ways of standing up for rights of people. And I cannot say which one is best or if we need to choose. I think it's very difficult when people get hurt by the aggressive tactic, but other people are being hurt in the meantime by not having the aggressive tactic, if that makes sense. So I think it's a really difficult area morally to have such a specific stand on. I mean, you absolutely made of course people will disagree with me. People will have their opinions because of history and how things have shaped certain things, and because of their own life experiences. I am absolutely coming to this from a cotton wool rose tinted glasses existence. I have a very easy life. I am in a very fortunate position. I have a lot of privilege. So I think that's why I don't feel I can say or weigh in on which is the best way, because I haven't got any like experience to kind of push me in one direction or other. But ultimately, I don't think you can come to a general consensus of which is the right approach. And I do think this was explored in this book. I think this has been explored in lots of other things I've been interested in. Like, for example, like I suppose the one you would, one that I definitely came across when I was reading the Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams, where you have the suffragette you have the women's suffrage movement, and you have the suffragettes that take the more radical, aggressive line, and you have the suffragists who take the more... This camera, that really made me jump. This camera is just doesn't want me to film. I'm filming, okay? This is happening now, otherwise it's never going to get filmed. And you have the suffragists who have that more peaceful, informative approach. And you have very different views on what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do. And I just find that concept fascinating. And Ziran J. Zhao really kind of goes in with this particular dystopia and the difficulties of women and how they are absolutely seen as secondary within this world. And it has reflections on parts of Chinese history. It goes into detail about the foot binding. That was so hard to read. I had to put the book down and come away from that. It kind of sets the tone for the book. Like, when you hear about that and how that was done to young children, it just... you can completely understand where the rage and the aggression comes from, and how it feels justified. That this needs to stop. Like, this is appalling. This is abhorrent. This is, physical abuse. This is torturous. And the result is that, that they then were, women were physically disabled within that particular society. And it was... and that kind of theme is explored, like the outcome of that practice and the physical impact it has on women, and how it kind of affects it keeps kind of coming, it does come back round to it, and like the implications of what that has for how they are able to be independent afterwards. It's very much about keeping people in their place, making people stay in their lane. And the explosion of it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. So there is a lot of hardline stuff in here. So if you are someone who is a little bit squeamish, it might not be for you. You might not be able to get on with it very well. But I think it is like looking at, I think it is weighing up, it is questioning it. It does bring up these ideas. It does bring up, like, is it ever okay to do this? Does the ends justify the means? Like, could you do this? I definitely know with someone, like, I could not act the way the main character does, but I didn't grow up in the main character's life. So her strength and her courage, you cannot fault it. Like, she is phenomenal. But I think what's great about the book is that, you know, she's not perfect. She has her things she struggles with and the way she is, and her friends in the book, they balance it with certain things and certain ways they are. And I just really enjoyed the trio in here. I'm now going to go into mild spoilers. So if you do want to read this and don't want to hear mild spoilers, please skip ahead to the next timestamp section. Thank you very much. You have been warned. So one of the things I did really enjoy about this book as well is that we have a polygamous relationship. We have 2 males and a female, and all 3 of them are attracted to each other. So we have bi representation. And it's just beautiful, and it just feels so wholesome, and it made me so happy, because that was something that was kind of making me uncomfortable. Like, I was like, okay, it's a YA book and I'm not quite sure how I'm feeling about certain things, but I just loved how it all came together, and just that polyamorous relationship is beautiful. It was beautiful to behold. And I just think all 3 characters had different strengths and weaknesses, and all complemented each other so well within that unit. So the pain of it, when they worry about each other, just felt real. It was really hard to read, and but the joy was so joyful, and I'm really excited to see where it all goes. And there was a lot of character growth, a lot of understanding. So our main protagonist, and I cannot remember her name, which is appalling, but I did say I read it a long time ago, and I don't have the book anymore because it's back at the library to look to refer to. But the main female protagonist, the protagonist who is female, she, because of her hard line, she's not very sympathetic towards the plights of some of the other characters in here. One of them in particular is a male that she meets later on, who is of a lower class standing, and has, was it a different race? I can't remember now, but there was like a secondary lower down the social scale, shall we say, to his character. And why he acted the way he did, his misunderstanding, how he's being used by the government, all of that was explored. But her disdain for his alcoholism without understanding where it came from, like, made me feel uncomfortable. But I'm so glad that was peeled back, and then she was able to kind of understand it, and she was able to reflect on her behaviour. And then you have the highborn privileged male, who is a sweetheart and is secure enough in his own identity to not feel belittled by someone of a different class or of a different gender that they feel they should be above. I love that he was able to accept, yeah, I wasn't right about something, you're right, I need to listen to you. But he also had a greater understanding of how people might be feeling, and was kind of like the voice of reason between 2 very aggressive. The other 2 in the relationship are a lot more kind of like passionate and aggressive because they've been downtrodden. So he's more in the privileged position of being able to be understanding and try and see things from another person's side. But he balanced them out beautifully, and they were a lovely triangle. And I loved how their different energy was used in the plot as well. So I really enjoyed all of that. The book does such a good job at just looking at all of those different like themes of oppression, and then you have another aspect that comes into play sort of more towards the end, which I won't talk about, that I thought was really beautifully kind of layered in. There were hints of it, but not enough that you guessed, well, I didn't anyway, sort of like saw the implications completely, and it was incredible. I really loved it. So what I was saying about the themes of the aggression versus the understanding, there were moments when certain characters did things to like save loved ones, and it was, the two different arguments were really interesting to kind of see side by side, and it was very hard choices, but there was part of you that kind of was rooting for like them to just like not let the government push them around and like call their bluffs and things. And it was a hard read. There was a lot of stuff going on in there, but it was such a wonderful time. I really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed it a lot, and I feel that seeing where the story goes is also going to impact my enjoyment thinking about it again. It's definitely one I'm going to reread again. I'll see how my enjoyment of the second one goes as well, and it'll probably be one that I will end up getting hold of at some point. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Okay, that was a lot to talk about. Tea time. So next I have to talk about Gender Euphoria, which is a collection of essays. I would say it's an adult non-fiction, but again, I think young adults can definitely read it, depending on their age, the relevance for them, their maturity and ability to like cope with certain subject matter. I think it's very much like every reader is an individual, and every reader has a different experience kind of going into things. So I think it's kind of like up to you really. But this was such a brilliant book. It's so joyful and so euphoric. There are so many trans stories where the focus is on the struggle, and I thought I'm gonna read the, I can't say it better than Laura Kate Dale, who is the editor and wrote a few of these essays. She is an autistic trans woman, and this is what she has to say, which of course I didn't plan to read this, so I haven't got it completely. Woo. Okay, here we go. I have thought a lot about the importance of celebrating the fact that stories of transition are not all just about doom and gloom, as much as it may sometimes feel that way. I've experienced countless moments of elation, pride, confidence, freedom and ecstasy as a direct result of my coming out as a trans woman the better part of a decade ago, and I know I am not alone. I'm not going to pretend that the world isn't sometimes a bit miserable, and a lot of us didn't have a rough road to get to where we are now, but this book isn't about that. This book is about gender euphoria. This book is about people doing small actions and grand gestures that made them feel radiantly themselves and wonderfully at peace. This is a book about stories of transition as euphoria. And it is right. It's right to have that balance of joy amid the hard stories as well. So this was very uplifting. I found it quite emotional at times. I go into a lot more detail in my video, which I'll link here. So I read this as part of the Magical Readathon, so it's in my segmented study, and is probably the longest segmented study. I didn't realise how much I had to say about this book until I did that. But I think all of the stories in here are, they've been put together really well. It's really different, and it reflects the difference in people's lives. It reflects people's journeys, where people come from. There's a mixture of able-bodied and disabled, neurodivergent, different ethnicities and cultures, and different parts of your life, whether that's like your clothes, your family, your activities. It kind of all is explored in here. So I definitely think it's something you can read cover to cover, but you can also dip in and out of as well. So this was a fantastic book, and I recommend it to everyone as well. I think everyone should read it. I then have another book that I spoke of in another segmented study, which I will link here. So this is Spice Road by Maya Ibrahim. This was a buddy read with Vidania from Vidania Silver Scribe and Chloe from Fountain of Pages, who, if you don't know, we all are lucky enough to get the Fairy Loot subscription boxes, which is a YA fantasy subscription box. And they do lots of beautiful items and beautiful books in there. And this is one of the most beautiful ones, I feel. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. And these edges are green with gold items of a teapot urn, a sword or dagger and a goblet, and little red flowers all kind of woven in, and it's just gorgeous. We had a brilliant time reading this. I'm really loving doing my buddy reads with Vidania and Chloe. If you're also a Fairy Loot reader and you want to get in on that, then give me a message or message Vidania or Chloe. We have got a chat going on Discord that you can be involved in as well. And if it outgrows the Discord chat, then I will put it onto my Discord channel. So if you want to join us, please shout out. You're more than welcome. And just being able to chat with them, what we kind of do with this is we set ourselves a number of chapters and then we chat all together about that section and then move on to the next one. And sometimes it felt like frustrating because you were just like, I need the next ones now. But we all understood and we all did it, and it was great fun. Like, I really enjoyed knowing that I was reading it with them and hearing their thoughts as we went on all together. It's not how I do all my buddy reads, but I feel it really works for us three in this section, because we are all people who will read multiple books at the same time, so we can always read something else while we're waiting for other people to catch up. And this was a wonderful kind of fantasy world. It's a desert fantasy. It's got its roots in I can't remember what it was said. Sort of like Middle Eastern culture and history and mythology. So it explores a lot of that. And the world is interesting. The map is wonderful. Let's give you a little look at this map. It's coming. It's on its way. Look at this. Whoa! There's all my extra bits falling out the book. So this map was glorious, and I did refer to it a lot as we were going, and things were detailed in here and named, which I always like, because sometimes you have a map, they name a place, and you can't find it on the map, and you have no idea how much that frustrates me. I like to, if there's a map, I want to know where we are in the story. So I really enjoyed the main character in here. I thought she was really fun. I really enjoyed her sister as well. There were other characters we have along the journey, and your opinions of them kind of change as it kind of goes up and down, or remains the same depending what your opinions are. So that it's got a quest aspect to it. There's revelations that kind of come out about certain things. There is a political undertone. There is exploration of prejudice and judging people. There is a kind of exploration of how much do you trust what you're told over what you feel is the right thing? Like, duty over your own kind of free will, I feel, is explored in this. There were moments where certain things frustrated me, just in terms of the protagonist's choices. Not all the time, but just on certain occasions, just because I was in a very different headspace to her. And I think there were certain things that I would like to have explored a little more. Like, I think that I wanted certain conversations with her sister to kind of be pulled apart a bit more. You still got kind of closure on their relationship arcs and on their choices and changes of opinions on things. But I think that I just wanted that to go a little bit deeper, and I think I also wanted that to happen a little bit sooner so I could stop feeling frustrated with the character. But it wasn't massive, like it was only like a mild feeling. If you are someone who enjoys a fantasy world, especially of sort of like a Middle Eastern one, I think you'll really enjoy this. if you struggle with reading YA because of the certain tropes of love triangles or potential love interests, and those kind of attraction feelings being explored, you probably won't enjoy that. But if you're okay with like skipping over the bits that you aren't interested in to get the fantasy bits that you are, then I still recommend giving it a whirl if you want to, because I do feel that this world is really fascinating, and I feel there's a lot of history that's going to come out of it, and I think we've only scratched the surface of that, and I'm really excited to see where we go next, because this is a trilogy, so I'm very excited for the next book, and I really hope it lives up to the hype that we have. I also feel that it's very atmospherical as well. I think that Maya Ibrahim did a really good job of like setting the scene with how the world, it felt like a very kind of like richly layered world, and the difference from the different places you went to, like I could really visualize what was going on. And I just feel like the storytelling and the way we're kind of taken there is just going to get tighter and come more naturally, like the more she goes on. Like it was well written, but I just, one of those where it's like you feel it's going to get better. Like there were certain things slightly jarring. I think that's only because I'm being really picky about it. So I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing her settle into her writing and just get more proficient at it, if that makes sense. It sounds really like poncy me saying that with my, I'm just coming at it as a reader, and that's my thoughts as a reader. But there we go. Really enjoyed this one, and obviously there is more thoughts. I'm then going to talk about one of the books I really loved as well. Let's have some more tea before we get there. Oh, picture books. I haven't mentioned a picture book. Let's do a picture book look. So I have Not Now Noor by Farhana Islam and illustrated by Nabila Adani. I love the pictures in this picture book. So this I read for the prompt yellow, because we have got Noor is in this wonderful yellow t-shirt dress that she stays in throughout the story, and it's got a beautiful, glorious, happy, smiley sun on the front, and I just think that reflects her joyful, inquisitive nature within this book. You also explore all these women in her family. So you have her paternal aunt, you have her older teenage sister, you have her Amu, which is her mum, and then you have her two grandparents who are, let me get them the right way around, Nanu, that's her maternal grandma, and Dadu, which is her paternal grandma. And I just think it's wonderful, like seeing all this whole range of different characters, all of their different hijabs in the story, and seeing Noor's exploration of why do the women in her family wear hijabs? What is a hijab? What is its purpose? Why do you wear them? And so the book is so playful with it. It goes through all of these wonderful things about her interacting with her mum, like how you wear a hijab, what you don't do with a hijab, but like the parent just like allowing her daughter to kind of have fun with her hijab, and just that wonderful kind of like interaction. You then also get to see all of the family gathering around the table for, I'm going to presume it's breakfast, like the start of the day, and you get to see all of their different characters and kind of the family love and the family unit in here. And then you individually see them as she constantly questions each of the members of her family about why they wear a hijab, but they're all too busy to talk to Noor. So they all say, not now, Noor. Like she's asking her sister, is it because you like to hide your snacks in your hijab, or is it so no one can see your enormous ears? So typical little sister, like annoying the older sister. And she's off with her friend. She's like, not now, Noor, I'm not having this conversation with you now. And that kind of persists throughout the book. I particularly enjoyed her conversation with her granny. So her nanu. So her nanu, her hijab is a really long one, and she also, I don't know the correct terminology, but she also wears like the veil across her face when she is out. I don't know if in the family home she's, yeah, so in the family home she's got it off, but when she's out she's got she's in full black, and she has got so yeah, so you see her in the family home without her hijab and without her veil, but in outside she's got the veil across. And I love how her questions to Nanu is it because you're a super spy and you have to stay undercover all the time, or you're a top secret agent? And you've just got this character of someone who's just interested in what's going on, and sort of like exploring, and she just feels like a really fun Nanu. She just feels like really fun, and but at the moment she's too busy to tell Noor what it is. And then you get the lovely other Nanu, who is much more kind of like chilled out and sleepy, but here for a story with her granddaughter, and she cuddles her down on her knee, but then she falls asleep. And I just think it's so joyful. And poor Noor is so frustrated. Like, will she ever learn about what a hijab is for? And then you get her Amu, who gets down a family photo album that shows the family wearing the hijabs at different moments of their life. And this is what she says about why they wear a hijab. We are Muslim women, my Noor, unapologetic and true. We are believers, we are dreamers, we are thinkers, we are leaders. We can wear our hijabs on our heads, like on our hearts and on our sleeves. And whether you choose to or not, my Noor, we are so many things, and we are more than enough. My hijab is not just a scarf, it means more to me. It is a reminder of who I am, where I'm from, and where I'm going to be. And perhaps one day you'll understand what I mean, because most of all, without my hijab, my Noor, I don't feel like me. So it's such a warm, positive book about sort of your culture and different ways that you can represent yourself, and different reasons, and like ultimately the reason why some women wear a hijab, but also the kind of acknowledging that you don't have to, it is your choice. And it was just really positive. And I think especially when there is still a lot of racism towards Muslim women and people who wear hijabs or veils, I think this is just such an important story for people to read, to understand better, and for children who have hijab wearers in their family to see themselves and see their family reflected. And it is such a warm, lovely yellow book. So yellow was one of Jack's prompts, so I'm delighted that I could I think I saw that book actually and was like, that's my yellow book. That is a picture book that I bought for myself because I saw it in the supermarket and was like, I want to read that. I want to read that, and I just bought it for myself. I haven't even shown my children it. Like, I will do, but I just like, that's my book. Okay, let's move on to Binti. So I have read Binti and Binti Home. And in April, I read Binti, Sacred Fire, and I then read Binti, The Night Masquerade, which is the final book in the Binti trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor. So, it is if you don't know Binti, Binti is a adult sci-fi. It is African futurism, and it is Sacred Fire is a short story which comes in between Binti and Binti Home, although I read it after Binti Home, and then The Night Masquerade is the final novella. So it's a trilogy of novellas, and this bind-up includes the short story Sacred Fire. So I really enjoyed Sacred Fire. I found it was a really great way of exploring the trauma that Binti goes through, and it kind of gives us a bit of her life after the events of Binti, and allows her to kind of be who she is in Binti home. So I felt it was a really nice story to read for that. I can't say anymore because I actually am not spoiling Binti for you. It's if you enjoy sci-fi, if you enjoy a story with really strong themes, if you enjoy a story that's emotional, if you enjoy beautiful, strong character development and world building, and I am still astounded by this, that Binti is a novella, and it just, I keep saying the same phrase, it packs a punch. It's so full. It's so full, and I just think it's incredible to have a novella that does that, that gives you that. And each book builds on what I felt reading Binti and goes into it more. So there is a lot of hard stuff to read about, but again, there is a lot of exploration about there's a word coming. Diplomacy, I think, is the best word. Like coming together from different cultures, and especially kind of when you've been hurt by another people, and kind of unpicking the hurt and trying to build a compromise to stop the hurt continuing. So it's trying to stop that cycle of war and of hurt, and I think is just explored so well in here. Also exploring prejudice, about how people are treated as second class, and even the people who are treated as second class then treat another culture in here as like their dirt. And it's just fascinating how it's all explored, and like there's so many layers to this. There's so many interesting like parts of being, and it all kind of culminates together. It is definitely a whole trilogy exploring that there are different parts of you that make you you, and you can belong to different sides. It's a lot about kind of identity and the mixture of identity and kind of the richness that makes you a person, and that you are still you, no matter how you might change or how you might look different, or how you could go to other places and that experience will change you. You are still you, but you are not the same you were because you have grown, you have like transformed and progressed to continue being who you are. And I think that's important. You know, if we all stayed the same, we'd be scrawling little babies still. You know, it's important we progress. It's important that we change. It's important that we open ourselves to new ideas and don't continue to think that we know everything. We are always learning. We are always expanding. And this trilogy does such a beautiful job of that. And I'm now going to go into, not full on spoilers, but there might be things that might give away certain aspects of Binti and Binti Home by me talking about the Night Masquerade. So if you haven't picked up Binti, if you haven't picked up Binti Home, then I suggest skipping to my next book. So the Night Masquerade picks up where we left off, and it felt emotionally devastating. I did not know what was going to happen from here. There was so much that felt like, again, the amount of trauma that Binti's gone through and how she's managed to pull herself back together and keep going is incredible. And it just shows her strength of character, and it shows her mental strength and her emotional strength, that she allows herself to grieve and has worked out how to help herself keep going, and she does. And the relationships that she continues to make once she has had, how they're all explored, is wonderful. There is still some joy, there is still some humor in here, but there is a lot of things that it hits you. It really hits you hard. But I love how you kind of feel like you're brought full circle within it as well. And it just looks at sort of like the stupidity of war and people that won't listen and people who are out of their own agendas, like despite the work and effort that peacemakers put in, it's so hard to keep going with certain things, and you cannot fix everything as much as you want to, but you still make a difference in what you do. And I think all of that is just done so beautifully, and I love this. I'm so pleased I read it. I look forward to rereading. I'm sure I'll get more from it when I reread, and I cannot wait to read more of Nydia Crawford's work. It's incredible. And yeah, I'm going to put another one of these. So another buddy read I had was again with the wonderful Daniel Silverscribe, and that is Jungledrop. So this is the second book in the Unmapped Chronicles by Abby Elphinstone. It's a middle grade fantasy. It's a portal fantasy, and I have loved the other ones that I've read. I love this as well. I think it has a slightly different feeling to the other two that I've read. So this is book number 2 in terms of publishing order. But it's the third book I've read, because the first book is Rumblestar, the second book is this one, Jungledrop, then there is Everdark, which is a prequel. So I read Everdark before Jungledrop. I don't think that changed anything for me, but read how you like. I still recommend reading Rumblestar first, because I think it gives you a kind of good overall picture. But sure, if you want to read Everdark first, it's your choice, whatever works. But they don't you can do that because the overlying story of the world is what's continued, but you get different protagonists in each one, so it's different children that feature in each book. And it's like in the history of the world keeps going. There's still this problem they're fighting against in the Unmapped Chronicles with, is it got a name of the kingdom? Hold on one moment. The Unmappers, I think it's just called the Unmapped King. Yeah, the Unmapped Kingdom. So the Unmapped Kingdom exists alongside our world, and these are portal fantasy books. So children from our world go into the Unmapped world, and they are fighting against the forces of evil to try and stop stuff that's happening. The way Abby Elphinstone writes is incredible. It is full of such wonderful whimsy. It's so charming. It's so delightful. You get food, you get sentient objects, you get magical artifacts, you get to explore another part of the world. But also each human child goes on a journey of like discovery and self-worth, and they're all so different. But at no point does Abby Elphinstone sound patronizing. She makes you feel empowered and inspired, and her love for children and the amazing things that children can do and are capable of shines through her books. So I felt quite emotional reading a lot of her stories. I've also been listening to these as an audiobook as well, so I do a mixture of reading some of it physically and listening to it in the audiobook. I really like the audiobook narrator. It feels so cozy, it feels so warm. It took me a while to get used to it, because I physically read Rumblestar and then I audiobooked Everdark and Jungledrop. But it matches my feeling of the world, so it's very easy to read, and I like listening to it, because then I kind of get to be reading on the go. So I've very much enjoyed the audiobook of these. So Rumblestar explores children that lack confidence in themselves and kind of like a belief in what they're capable of. And the journey changes them, and they are able to embrace who they are and feel that they can have friendships and are able to do things. And in Everdark, you have a character who is dyslexic, who struggles academically, and that one in particular was just so heartwarming in her starting to feel that she is capable of doing things. She is worthwhile and clever, and the way she looks at the world and sees the world is different to other people, and that's totally okay. And because of that, she has other strengths inside her, and I think that was wonderful, and like that was really, really well done. And I think you got a lot of Abby Elphinstone's own kind of what's the word, personal feelings and history into that as well, because if you read about her, you can see that there were certain teachers she didn't get on with and that felt like she wouldn't manage things, and I think that is really reflected in her books, that she doesn't want any child to ever feel like that. And in these ones you get two unlikable children because of how they've been raised. So it gave me kind of the feeling of like Matilda. If Matilda was loved by, well, like what could have happened to Matilda if like she had to follow her parents kind of through. It kind of had that vibe of that kind of family and that kind of sort of like zany, ridiculous parents, but with like a kernel of truth to them. It felt very believable within the story they were, and seeing the kind of the growth and progression of the children as they come into the unmapped kingdom, and that sometimes other people can see your potential and your abilities before you can, and to try and let go of what you've been taught and all the bad information that you have been given by grown-ups who were supposed to support you, and standing up to grown-ups that aren't good for you. This was a really important book, I think, and I really hope this falls into the hands of any children that sadly experience that. To feel like you're not worth something unless you are useful is something no child should ever feel. And I think this book did a really good job at building up self-worth and self-confidence and the importance of kindness and looking after people. And what was wonderful in here is that often in books you will have a character that has a particular gift. They have something that they're really good at, but not everyone will have that in the same way in something that can be really tangible and seen. Like not everyone is going to have like a shine in an athletics of field, or academically or artistically. Like we don't all have that. But what this book really shows is that actually like your characteristics of how you are to people and what you dig down from yourself is important. And like you are worthwhile regardless of whether or not you have what's seen as a talent or a skill. You are talented and skilled for being you and for your contributions to your community and your friends and the people in your life. You are not just worth an academic ability or something like that. And I thought that was such a fantastic message to have in a storybook. But it can be quite difficult to read when you're just like, please get the message. I know Vidania and I spoke about how one of the characters, Fox, were like, oh, come on, Fox, you're so close. And she just can't quite let go of like, I don't need people, I've got to do this myself, people are a waste of time. And I think it took a bit longer than both me and Vidania were comfortable with to like for her to get to that point. We obviously were there way before then. But I think it was a great story, and it did work really well. Okay, picture book number 2. We have I Want My Hat Back by John Klassen. So this was for the prompt by Shelly, Shelly Swearingen, for silly. Because I find this story really silly, but so good. And it's definitely one that you can read as an adult. And there is I'm going to see if I can link it. Now, my friend Jess, who has the channel Me, Myself and I, not posted for a while, but definitely go check out her content because she's hilarious. She's still active in Discords and still reading a lot. And she messaged me this comedian reading this book, and it was so funny. Like someone just it was doing a comedy show and someone just gave him this book and said you should read it. And the other person they were with on the stage like knew it as like his reading it with one of his kids. And just watching him read this book and the way he delivered it was just wonderful. So if I can find that video, I'm going to link it because it was great. So again, like the art style is really different. It's really simple in this. John Classen, it's very typical of him. He uses lots of kind of like dark colour tones and like no background really. So like most of the background it's all very kind of like nature based with animals, and they're all these various different kind of shades of grey and brown, and you always kind of get like the pictures on one side and like the writing on the other. And here you can see the different voices are through the different colours. So you have the bear. Have you seen my hat? What is a hat? Thank you anyway. And so each different character he comes across has not seen a hat and they give a different response. So it's basically, have you seen my hat? Animal response, thank you anyway. And there's one point when, if you have a little look here, this character looking a bit shifty, wearing a red hat. And then a little bit later on in the book, one character says, what does your hat look like? And the character, he tells him, and then he has this epiphany. He's seen his hat and runs back to go and see where his hat went. And there's a joke that's inferred in here. And there's also a wonderful kind of continuation of this, no, I haven't seen this, or what is this? And then the character saying thank you anyway. And I'm not going to tell you any more than that because I'm hoping I can find this clip and then you can see it in real time. And it's just hilarious. And my children got it and find it so funny. And I think this is my husband's favourite book of one of the picture books that we read to our children. Yeah, it's definitely a family favourite. I think my son's one, they have one called The Rock That Fell From the Sky, and they love that one. And my mum loves these. My mum Nata introduced us to these. Like she found The Rock That Fell From the Sky, and then we kind of went on this wonderful journey from there of discovering all his other books. But yeah, they really enjoy that one as well. So yeah, it's such a silly, it's silly, but in such a great way. But it's subtle at the same time, and like it really teaches children about what's not being said. And I think that's a really fun thing to have in storytelling. Okay, 2 physical books left. No, 2 non-picture books left. So we have City of Dragons that I'm not going to talk a huge amount about because it is in the video that I've already put a link through. It's my segmented study 4. So when I spoke about Spice Raid, I put the link in there. I spoke about both of them in that same vlog. So City of Dragons, adult epic fantasy by Robin Hobb, the 3rd book in the 4th series in the Realm of the Eldlings. And these ones are called the Rainwild Chronicles. And I am very much enjoying my Hobb journey, and we all knew going in the Rainwild Chronicles would have a different feel because of like the history of the books. And I highly recommend going to, if you want to know more about Robin Hobb, I highly recommend going to Derry's channel. Derry's read it before because if you've been on my channel before, you know I call her the Hobb Guru. She is wonderful. She is the goddess of Hobb knowledge. And she has read these so many times, and being able to talk to her about them is such a privilege. But she will give you the history of the order and kind of goes more through each book. And I don't think I can explain it better than her. So I think if you are wanting to read Hobb, I always recommend like going and looking at some of her stuff. And to why you need to read Hobb in the order and not miss anything out. I think that is important. And already there's stuff in this one that there were holes in the lore of the land and certain things from the end of Fool's Fate, my favourite book of all time at the moment. And so you get more in here. and it's exciting, and I'm hoping we get more in Blood of Dragons. I have got a small bit left to read of Blood of Dragons and stuff that happened in here that goes on in there. It's so exciting. But one thing that did make me feel a bit cautious about this one is the fact that it's so small. And I just feel like the other 1 and 2 should be one book. And that was so detailed on this like quest of all these characters. There's so much character stuff going on in there. I really loved it. So I just felt we weren't going to get the same time to really explore stuff and just immerse ourselves in this world. Other people much prefer this because it's a lot more fast paced for Hob, and you get lots of different plot points. You're not just with the same characters on this continuous journey. So a lot of people really enjoyed this. I mean, it is a whirlwind. There is a lot going on. And I think that's what, like, I would just want to stay a little bit longer and explore it a little bit more. But I trust Hob. She has her plan. I don't know where we're going, but we will get there. But I think there are certain things, there's certain like character stories where I'm like, oh, I wish we could have kind of lived and breathed it with you a little bit more. And that's my opinion. That's what I want, because I'm just, what is the right word? I don't know. I could just sit and feast on Hob all day. I would be very happy with all the Hob. Whereas other people who like a tighter story are like, nope, shave it down. Let's get to the point a bit more. Where I'm like, no, give me more details. I want to bask in this. I want to lay them all out like a glorious picnic and just sit and dwell. I want more. I will always want more from Hob. So that's why I have feelings about this book the way that I do. But it's Hob. I loved it. Wonderful. It's amazing. There's such fantastic moments in here. There's some amazing kind of like political moments. There's some amazing, like, we see some characters that were in the Live Ship Traders in here, and their progression, again, character arc, phenomenal. And stuff they go through, you are just like, And I have to admit, in this book, I had to do a lot of skipping forward to just before I could go to sleep, before I could like go and cook the dinner, you know, and get on with chores. It's like, I can't just sit and read it. Like, the Hob, I know I have to have time, because I know I'm not going to just be able to leave these characters in peril. They are just going to take over my whole thoughts and stop me concentrating and thinking. So there's a lot of that going on. Wonderful, brilliant Hob. We love Hob. More of my thoughts in a different space. Ta-da! We have one picture book and one middle grade book left. And I'm going to tell you about the final picture book, which is Mog and Bunny by Judith Kerr. This is Mog's a classic. Mog's a classic children's book. I wanted to have a range of like more modern children's books and more older children's books in here, and a kind of different range of art styles as well for Picture This. So this is a lot of fun. So Judith Kerr uses a lot of pencil drawings. It feels very much like she's got a wonderful crayon box or like a watercolor set, and has created her art from those. Just look at Mog playing with Bunny. This is one of the things I really enjoy. Just the characterization of Mog the cat and the love Mog has with their favourite toy, their best thing. And just how Bunny starts off looking like a bunny and ends up... I'm going to see if I can find the best picture of Bunny. Ends up not looking like a bunny. But it's so truthful. There you go, here. I think you can see Bunny in the basket there. So a bunny is a little pink. You could probably hold it in the hand. Little fluffy rabbit. But by the end, there's no ears. The face is kind of fluffed off. It's just 2 eyes and 2 tufts where the ears used to be, and this kind of old soggy pink blob. But Mog loves him. Mog loves Bunny. And the children know that Mog loves Bunny, and Bunny just appears all over the house in random places. But the parents say, yuck, what a horrible, filthy thing. Whereas the children go, look where Bunny's got to. And they threaten to throw Bunny in the bin, which the children are worried about. And one day they have a barbecue, and it starts to rain, and Mog hasn't come in. And the children go outside to investigate. And they find the reason that Mog didn't come in was because Bunny has got stuck under one of the barbecuing implements, and Mog won't leave Bunny alone in the rain. It's so cute. Mog loves Bunny so much. Mog is sat with Bunny until someone comes to help Bunny so that Bunny can come in the house as well. I love Charlie and Nikki in here. Not a fan of the parents, I have to say. I find the parents very maybe of their time. I don't know. Parenting was very different in those days, I think. Not a huge amount of understanding and a lot more social expectations, shall we say. But it feels very much of its time, but like you're supposed to just enjoy Mog and the children. And I think that's the delight of the picture books, that the adults don't always understand. And I think that still can feel that way for children sometimes. So I just enjoy how the children and Mog kind of know what's going on and what the best thing for Mog is, and the parents don't always know. But we do get the reassurance at the end. I mean, we do have this conversation. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the children waking up in the middle of the night because Mog's not there, going into the garden, helping Mog, bringing Mog back in, drying them, and the parents just sleep through it all while the children sort all that out. Like, I'm like, if my children were able to go outside in the middle of the night, I'd be like, I need to be a lot more alert and put something jingly on their door so I can hear them if they manage to do that. And Mrs. Thomas is just really chill about the whole thing when they tell her about what happened. I do enjoy that they took their umbrella with them, so we can see the umbrella popped up in this corner and they've just gone to sleep. There's something quite sweet about the fact that they've got twin beds and they're sort of next to each other. And it's like they've got their own little social corner. So Debbie and Nikki are fast asleep, and then Mrs. Thomas comes into them in the morning, and I just enjoy that Nikki's put up the umbrella and is just sitting talking to them under this dry umbrella at bedtime. There's just something just about that childlikeness that just I really appreciate. But yeah, Mrs. Thomas doesn't seem to care. They just went and let themselves out in the rain at midnight and helped their cat, and she was oblivious to the whole thing. But if you've ever read Mog and the Baby, you will sort of see my disdain for Mrs. Thomas's parenting. So Mog and the Baby is not my favourite. Like, we borrowed it from the library. I'm like, we are not owning that book. I can't cope with it. But Mog and Bunny I love. It's my favourite Mog book. I also love Mog the Forgetful Cat, although that makes me laugh as well. And Goodbye Mog I think is such an important story. I love Goodbye Mog. Goodbye Mog is very healing, actually. And I think there are definitely a lot of us in the community that need that healing now, having felt really sad about Pax passing. So I think if you're someone that does a lot of healing through books, I really recommend reading Goodbye Mog. It's a beautiful story, I think, to read when you're grieving someone. Didn't realise I was going to put that in there, so sorry about the tone swap there. But Mog is my favourite Mog book. That's because I love the joy of Bunny. I love the joy of playing with this favourite toy, and the delight and the understanding and love that is in this one. So this was Shelly Swearingen's prompt for pink, because Bunny is pink. Lovely pink Bunny. So that was my pink. And that is all the books I read for Picture This Readathon, and I'll wrap it up in a moment once I talk about this one last book I have to talk about. It's a children's classic. It is a historical fiction. It is Goodnight Mr Tom by Michelle Magorian, and this is my second copy. This is my first copy that I have had for a really long time. Let me see when this is published. Oh look, it's got my old name in my old handwriting from when I took it to school. This was, does it say this edition? No way you find the edition of the book you're reading from. Don't know. No. But it's only got back home listed. So I don't know what she'd only written back home. So she hadn't written all her other books when I'd got this one. And I think I bought this first hand. I don't think it was second hand. I think I definitely got it. This was new for me. This was a new to me book. But this has been my copy of Goodnight Mr Tom since I first read it. And I will never get rid of this one because this holds all of the emotional nostalgia. This was my first book. So I will always keep this one. And it's not like it's not my favorite cover by all means. I mean, I do enjoy the back that the brown looks like the brown paper bag that Willie Beach arrives at his evacuee home in. And then you have got this kind of old faded photograph of my dad was born. I hope you wouldn't mind me saying this. I'm sure he won't mind. But my dad was born in 1940. And we have these photographs of him when he was little, like in the 40s, like looking like the photos look like that. So I do quite enjoy that. But I haven't really seen many versions of this, so I quite like it because this is not the kind of the picture of most copies that people have, so it feels quite unique, and I quite like that. But yeah, it feels so special to me because this is what it's a story. I absolutely love this story. It's one of my favorite books, and I haven't reread it. It's been a long time since I reread it. Like, I've reread it loads, but I hadn't reread it for quite a long time, for quite a while. So I was really pleased that the FOMO book club had their read. March and April was Goodnight Mr Tom. So the FOMO book club is Jack from Spread Book Joy, Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and Jem from Gem of Books. So I will link either in the description box or here the discussion for Goodnight Mr Tom. I can't remember how many videos I've already linked, and you can only link 5, so apologies if I run out of linking room. So they had their live discussion on Goodnight Mr Tom. Sadly, I couldn't make the live, but I am all over those comments. I had so much. I was so excited about this one. So I really enjoyed the chat and hearing how I think Alice had already read this, but Jem and Jack hadn't. So it was but Jem had seen the film, so it was actually really wonderful that there was a different experience from everyone in that, and I thought that was fantastic, just hearing all their thoughts on it, and just hearing all the people in the chat and other readers and what they felt about it and what they saw. So I love it so much. So I can never get rid of this one, but because I love it so much, I want a pretty copy, and this is the Puffin Children's Classics. So I have a few of these. Can't remember what else I have, but I had to get Goodnight Mr Tom. And the really funny thing is, Mum got it as well, but we got it separately, and then we told each other about it. So she was like, I bought a book because I had to, but I don't know if it's for you or for me. And then she told me about it, and I'm like, I treated myself to one of those. It's under my bed waiting for me to earn it, so that's definitely yours, but thank you for thinking of me. So this is a hardback. Printed on the cover, you've got this gorgeous silhouette of Mr Tom, Willie Beach, and Sammy the dog. And then you've got aeroplanes and clouds in the sky, and it's this lovely blue hardback, and it feels nice. So I love my paperback because it's so small, and I can just like hold it and just read it anywhere, and it's great. But I love being able to sit with Pretty Book, and I just love the feel of it in my hand with the hardcover, and just the pages and the squareness of it and the softness of the pages, and this noise. Love that noise. So reading this from this copy was so fun. It was such a delightful experience, and loses nothing in the rereading. In fact, like, it gains, because I can't remember when I last read it, and I think this was possibly the first time after a long time I read it with an adult perspective. So that was new for me. But Goodnight Mr Tom is set in around the start of the Second World War. Willie is evacuated to this little village, and it is just about the community. It is about the relationship by Willie and his guardian when he's been evacuated, Mr Tom, and how they have both suffered in their lives, and how this meeting between them helps them like find the joy in life and find the ability to kind of live their lives to the fullest and live to their full potential. And it's so wonderful. That relationship is just so wonderful. Like, I think I cried the most in this, not at the bits which are sad, but at the bits which are emotionally lovely. So like it was the happy tears that really got me in this at so many points. So again, do check for trigger warnings for this one, because yes, it's a middle grade, but there is some hard stuff in here. I can't remember when I read it. I can't remember when I first read Mr. Tom, because I've reread it so many times. As a teenager, I can't remember if I was a teenager, early teenager, or like late child when I read it. But I think just knowing, you know, whatever young person you have in your life, like knowing what they're able to cope with as to whether or not this is going to be appropriate, whether it's going to be a book that's best to kind of read aloud with them, so you can kind of support them through things that are more difficult. I think you need to make that judgment, but it's such a worthwhile story. It's an absolutely beautiful story to share with children and to read as an adult. There's a reason it's a classic. It is magnificent. Just the way that you are immersed in the world. Like, she is so good at bringing to life the place, the sense of place in her books. Like, you are there, you are living and breathing in there. And the warmth of the community and the characters are so three-dimensional. They are so full of layers. They are so realistic. It's just so joyous to read. It's an absolute pleasure to be in her books. Latest one I didn't love so much, so I never talk about that one. But I love Goodnight Mr Tom to Just Henry, or Back Home. I can't remember if she wrote Back Home before Goodnight Mr Tom or not. No, I think it was Goodnight Mr Tom first. Goodnight Mr Tom to Just Henry, I love. I just absolutely love that range. They're all kind of set around the 40s. Sometimes wartime, sometimes slightly just after wartime, maybe just into the 50s, I'm not sure, but like that era is kind of like the historical one she covers. And just the relationships of the characters and like the changes they undergo, and not just the main ones but also the secondary ones as well. Like, I think we all like have our own little ones that we love, and just seeing their own individual journeys within this, and the contrast between London and the village life, and like the different senses of community that you get in both of those, and the ones where they feel like they thrive and don't thrive. I had the best time reading this. I'm so pleased that I got to reread it again. So thank you so much, FOMO Book Club, for encouraging me to reread and for letting me be part of this. And if you haven't read Goodnight Mr Tom, get on it. And why I'm putting that book there. It lives there. Okay, I have been on here for nearly an hour and a half talking about all my April reads. This is unprecedented. So let's quickly go through the readathons. So the first readathon I'm going to talk about is the Picture This readathon by Jack from Spread Book Joy and Shelly from Shelly Swearingen. Their announcement video will be linked in the description box so you can see what it was all about. But these are the 6 picture books that I read for this. So I read Are You a Girl or Are You a Boy by Sarah Savage, illustrated by Fox Fisher, for Hope. This is a non-binary story and it is so hopeful, and I really hope that a lot of people read it, share it with their families, and just appreciate the understanding and non-binary people being seen. I also read for Movement, which was also one of Jack Prompt's, Gregory Cool by Caroline Binch, and she did the illustrations and the story as well. I love Caroline Binch's artwork. She just draws humans so realistically and beautifully. This is a story about a boy called Gregory, who is black, who goes to visit his relations in an island, and it's going to be the one that I think it isn't. So it's either Trinidad or Tobago, and I can't find off the top of my head which one it is. It's Trinidad or Tobago, and I do talk about which one it is in the wrap-up and also in my TBR, so I'm very sorry. But we've been on here long enough rather than me searching through it. And this was for Movement because there's a lot of movement in here, but also it explores Gregory Cool just embracing the culture of the island, like slowly letting go of his like street city living and just being more free and enjoying where his grandparents and his cousin live and having fun there. I then read for Funny, You're Called What by Kez Gray and Nikki Drayden. And again, it's a favourite book. It's a really funny book. It's a load of animals that have silly names going to the Ministry of Animals for silly names to change their names so people stop laughing when they say what animal they are. And it features all real animals. And at the back of the book, you get to see all those animals in photographic evidence, apart from a certain wasp, because there is no photograph of it. Checking that was correct, and I haven't just made that up. Yep. That's correct. I forget sometimes. Hilarious. Love this one. I then read, as I've already spoken about, Not Now Noor by Farhana Islam and illustrated by Nabila Adani for Yellow. I Want My Hat Back by John Klassen, illustrated and written by John Klassen for Silly. Yellow was a Jack prompt, Silly was a Shelly prompt. And the final Shelly prompt was Pink, and I read Mog and Bunny by Judith Kerr, written and illustrated by Judith Kerr. So there are my 6 books for Picture This. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you about picture books. That was a lot of fun. And I love picture books, and I hope you, if you took part in Picture This, got a lot of joy from seeing picture books being featured on the channels, and maybe thought about getting some from your library to have a look at as well. I still have to do my deep dive into the illustrator Minnie Gray, because that's something I wanted to do. I've got 3 books by Minnie Gray, and wanted to kind of look at her illustrative style and story style. So that will happen at some point. That is a future video. That will happen. And I'll still include like the Picture This hashtags and linkages so it can be found. Okay, let's do Trans Girl April. This is a wonderful readathon created by the lovely and talented Kevvie from Say Kevvie. Again, announcement video will be linked, so do go and check out her channel. Go and give her some love, because she is she's done amazingly, and people in the community, this community is wonderful. But she's got a Just Giving page at the moment because she is living somewhere that is not safe for her. She is a trans woman, and she is feeling very unsafe where she's living, and no one should have to feel like that. So please go and give her some support, even if you can't monetary wise. Just go and show her some love. Share her Just Giving page with people so that she will be able to move to much safer accommodation. She's so talented, and I'm so delighted that she did this readathon and invited everyone to like partake in it. I've really enjoyed being on her Discord and chatting with people about all the different books as well. So the ones I have to add in are my placeholder, Ziran J. Zhao's Iron Widow, and Gender Euphoria by Laura Kate Dale. So this was my TBR. I have Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, which is a fantasy genre by a trans woman. I have Genderqueer by Maya Kababe, which is a non-binary memoir, so went into the non-fiction, non-binary section of the Bingo Board. I have Iron Widow, which is a sci-fi, so it is a genre fiction, and Ziran J. Zhao is non-binary, so it went into the genre fiction, non-binary. Gender Euphoria is by Laura Kate Dale. Obviously, there are lots of a mixture of different contributing essays in there, but it's for the sake of the Bingo Board, it goes under Laura Kate Dale is a trans woman, so it goes under trans, and it goes of course it goes under trans. It goes under trans woman non-fiction. I've been filming and talking to you guys for an hour and a half. My tongue is tying itself in knots. I then had Trans Man, C. Riley Snorton, and this is a non-fiction book, Black on Both Sides, a racial history of trans identity, and this was for Trans Man non-fiction. Unfortunately, I did not get to this one. Books that I wouldn't have necessarily considered heavy did actually end up feeling quite heavy. I've read, I was reading sort of and had coming up quite a bit of sort of like non-fiction, more than I usually have, and it's not my normal genre, and I need to kind of be in a sort of place to take it in a bit more and to kind of read from it a bit more. This is the heaviest book I have, just in terms of ease of reading and in terms of what it's going to look at. And I had a lot kind of like coming up in my regular life that's not booktubey, and was like, I am not going to manage it this month. It's just not going to happen. So I put it to one side. I have since started reading it. I have read the full introduction, and so you will be getting my thoughts coming up in June for some of this, but this is definitely going to be a book I'm going to be reading over a lot of months, because I'm just not going to be able to take it in one sitting. But I'm really interested in reading it. I'm really excited about it, but it is very kind of academical, I think. So my brain needs to be in top motion for this one. So unfortunately I didn't get to that one, but I did realise I could add in the picture book, Are You a Boy or Are You a Girl? And it is written by Sarah Savage, who is a trans woman, and so I felt that this goes in genre fiction. So that is my trans. I've got five books for Trans Girl April. So woohoo! I did also read Gender Explorers as an audiobook, which would be trans woman non-fiction. But because I'd already got trans woman non-fiction, it didn't really fit on the bingo board. But I also read that one as well. So I've read 6 books. But I do realise that I am very much lacking in the trans man representation. And also in terms of diversity. I have got one author who is neurodivergent, one author who is Asian, but haven't got anything else other than that. So I definitely want to read more. I will be reading more. This is just a start. I'm really enjoying reading at least one trans book a month, and continuing to enjoy trans stories, share trans stories. But yeah, I definitely want to read the trans man part of authors. I want to be reading more of, because I haven't up until now. So there we go. But I have some good ones coming up. So I'm excited. I've got a whole list. It's all exciting. Obviously starting with C. Riley Snorton. Okay, we're moving on to the Magical Readathon, and I will need to pause for this because I'm going to need to replenish my tea because I am really struggling. Okay, refreshed. Magical Readathon, the final readathon of the month. I have my list. Well, Piola's Sir Loip's list of his academical studies. So if you have been watching the ORILIUM segmented study, you will know that Piola's has passed Star Whisperer. So whoop whoop, we did all of those. But Piola's is a book nerd, and Piola's wanted to read for all of the subjects. So Piola's has been pushing me. I wanted to make sure that we read all the ones that hit scribe. So that was elemental studies, spells and incantations, inscription, lore, and restoration. As you can see, inscription and lore also ticked for the Star Whisper as well. So that was very helpful. So I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, but I've just got all my books piled up for the list of courses that I've read. So there are only 3 classes that I did not read for, which I am very excited for. I did not finish. I started the fun alchemy, what do you call it? Quest. I started the quest. So I'm going to kind of continue the quest. As long as I get it done before August, that's going to be fun. So that will happen in another video. And I will continue to tell you how I'm doing in my studies as we go. Okay. I've got them in 2 piles. I can't do them in 1 pile. So I have got 5 classes here and a further 6 classes here. I'll try and lift them up at the end. We'll see. So first of all, I've now put all the books on my notes, which was just stupid of me, wasn't it? Oh, don't fall over. Oh, come on, tablecloth trick. Okay. So, alchemy. We had to read a book with metal in the title. I read Iron Widow by Zhou J. Zhao. Woohoo! Then we have animal studies. We had to flip a coin, and I flipped, and it was fiction, and I chose Of Women and Salt by Gabriela Garcia. Art of Illusion. We had genderqueer. I dressed up as the book cover in the wonderful trans flag colours. Let's put it up here so I can actually read it. astronomy. We had to read a book with 2 E's in the title for the eclipse effect, and I read fabulous Juno Dawson's Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which has 3 E's in the title, which is marvellous. The next class Piola's took was Conjuration, recommended book by a friend. I've now taken it back to the library, but I was recommended, oh, I didn't read this in, so it was 4 books I didn't read in April, because I read this one in May. I started it in April, but I didn't finish it in April. But it's here because we're doing a wrap up of books of classes that I have completed, so it's in here. So Conjuration is a read book recommended by a friend, and this is representing A Lonely Castle in the Mirror by an author I can't pronounce the name of and have totally forgotten because I am not prepared, so apologies. But Lonely Castle in the Mirror, see my May wrap up and I will tell you all about it. Love that book though, very amazing book. Demonology I don't have a book for yet, because that is to read a book compared to your favourite, and I kind of haven't explored that, so I'm looking for that one. If you know of any books compared to the sort of thing I like, please feel free to suggest them. I think I need to go on those videos of, if you like this, you'll like this. That's what I need to do, but not right now. And here we go, second pile. Okay, let's get them on the lap so that we are quicker. Elemental Studies. We're looking at botanic control. Flowers on the cover, and for that I had genderqueer, because on my cover we have got young Maya running through a field of flowers at the bottom of the book there. And then Piola's studied Spells and Incantations, Target Lengths, and that one I haven't read yet. I really hope to read, my plan is to read Queenie for that one, but I haven't read that one yet, so Queenie will hopefully crop up in one reading book this month at some point, but that's what I plan to read, hoping to read Queenie before August, so we'll see how that goes, because Queenie is between 389 and 415 pages, which is the prompt for that one. Artificery is reading a book with a snack. So I read A Pinch of Magic by Michelle Harrison with an Easter egg. It was delicious. Inscription, reading a book from your highest shelf. For that I had City of Dragons, because my Hob books are on my highest shelf, so that worked beautifully in my favour. Oh, don't smash the teacup. Right, come on books. I then read, Law was reading a book with a map, and Spice Road has a fantastic map, so I read that one. And Cloud Study 101, for the class of Psionics and Divination, we had to read a book with clouds on the cover in the title, and I read the wonderful Rainbow Grey, the final book in the trilogy Battle for the Skies by Laura Ellen Anderson. And for Restoration, you had to close your eyes, shuffle and point. And the book that I pointed to, which you can see in my TBR video, should you be so inclined, is Jungledrop by Abby Elphinston. So there we go. The other one that I still have to read is Shapeshifting from Wolf. I was planning on reading The Hunger of the Gods. For that one, Mason and I are hoping to buddy read it. For various different circumstances, we just haven't started that one yet. But I still hope to read that with Mason if he's still interested in reading that one with me. But if not, I have, and if he is and we can't read it for a while, I have got some other books with wolves on the cover that I am considering. So there we go. So in total, I have so far, Piola's has completed 9 classes for ORILIUM. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh no, 11 classes. Oh, that's exciting. 11 classes. Yes, Piola's has really stretched me. There were only 3 books that I didn't put on here. 12, 13, 14. I read 15 books for April, I thought. Oh well, never mind. Oh yes, there's some audiobooks that I haven't put in there. Anyway, here are the classes, 11 classes that Piola's did. Well done, Piola's Sirloip. I am now exhausted. This is why I decided not to do any readathons in June, because I overstretched myself for this. But I had so much fun. I had a wonderful time. It's just delightful being bookish with books. And this is nearly 2 hours, which is ridiculous. So I am going to say goodbye to you. If you are still here, I would really love to know. I love to know who actually sits through my whole video. So please leave Easter egg. So no, leave the little Easter chick cracking out the egg. Leave that emoji so I know that you were here and watched the whole thing, because it's fun to know. But I absolutely don't blame people who did not get this far, because it is ridiculous how long this has taken me to do. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a wonderful June, because that's what we are now. We are not even May, it's June. But happy reading, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine if you are in the Northern Hemisphere. I know, looking forward to summer. Southern Hemisphere, enjoy getting cozy and ready for winter. And I hope you all have a happy reading day.